Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday, August 15th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Chicago, where I'll be for the next month. Let me get TikTok rolling here. Hang on, make it a little brighter, too, while we're at it. There we go. TikTok. Boom. Introduce yourselves, folks. Let people know where you're from and all of that good stuff. Hang on. There we go. And my sister-in-law, it's almost guaranteed she's going to walk in the middle of the show. I'm just warning you now. I think it's a guarantee. And she's going to be surprised and say something. That's my guess. So get ready for it. Hesan fra Norge. I can never pronounce you guys, Scandinavians with your funny names. Sverige and Norge. And Dansk, maybe, for Denmark? Or is that an adjective? I never know. And Finland, I have no idea how to say Finland in Finnish. Oh, hello, TikTokers. Thank you, Red Watts, for that. Very nice of you. And John, thank you. Oh, we have one of my dad's old coffee mugs. Thank you, Big Hawk. That's one of my faves. Anyway, thank you, Adventures and User 336 and Mads. So many gifts coming in. Hey, Roy in London, Seattle. Evie, I always forget you're in the UK. Hey, Mark, thank you for the gifts. Brock, oops, sorry, hitting my microphone around. And Marcy, lots of gifts today already. Thanks, guys. Ace of Base fan in Texas. Oh my God, Ace of Base. Isn't that Ace of Base? Anyway, hey guys. Trump impeached for a fourth time. Yeah, that was a surprise. Thank you, Jetta and Jay. Well, tonight, assuming I can get the show done in time, we can jump to Discord for a little bit afterwards and we can talk a little bit about Trump's indictment. Since we don't mix politics with this show, but we can go do it there right afterwards. Oh, assuming we get done in time. Hopefully we get done with this in an hour and then we can head over there. So I'm not starving. I did eat, but I get hungry. I've been good. I have not started watching Strange New Worlds yet. Not yet. I can now say it doesn't, who knows when it shows up and when it doesn't. TikTok is so weird that way, Ace of Base is from Sweden. I didn't know that. Now, I will say this funny thing about Sweden is when you go and visit Sweden, thank you, Tomcat. By the way, anybody who's just joining us, we go the first minute or two waiting for folks to join us because TikTok sends out the message and YouTube and everything. So I sort of wait and chat for a minute or two before we get rolling. So just so you know why we're talking about Sweden. So I went to Sweden the first time a few years ago. And I kid you not, ABBA was playing everywhere. And it was the funniest thing. I love ABBA, but it's sort of an American stereotype that if you go to Sweden, it's all going to be ABBA. ABBA was playing in the bar. ABBA was playing at the political convention in the field. I mean, ABBA was playing everywhere. It was fabulous. It made me happy because I do love ABBA. We even had to learn ABBA songs in Spanish in high school. Quiero dar las gracias por las canciones. I think that was what the song was. But anyway, it was too funny. All right, guys, I'm ready to get rolling here. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Ellie, for that. I am John Aravosis. Welcome. This is the Aravosis Report, my nightly show I do Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Coming to you live, normally from Washington, D.C. This month, I'm going to be coming to you from Chicago, visiting my ma for the month, taking a little break, not really a break because I'm working, but nonetheless, visiting Chicago for the month, where the weather actually is decidedly nicer than D.C., so that's a good thing. We cover Ukraine, what's going on with the war. Typically, the way I do it is first half of the show, I will talk to you guys about the latest news. Second half of the show, take your guys' questions. I also, of course, always mention to you guys, I appreciate the gifts you give me because I do this for free and I'm able to do it full time by the gifts you guys give me on the show. So that pays a big part of my salary, actually. So thank you for that. Oh, hey, hey, Denny. Good to see you again. Or Dennis from Kyiv. Good to see you. So one of the ways you can give gifts on YouTube is doing the super chats or the super stickers. Super stickers are just a way of saying thank you in general. You access those by the $sign by the comment box in the bottom of the screen. Super chats are questions you can ask. And what I do as a thank you for the super chats on YouTube, I will always answer a super chat question and I will always get to it as the next thing I talk about as my thank you. Otherwise, I do try to answer questions, guys. I don't get to all of them. final thing is for you guys on TikTok. TikTok doesn't have a paid question thing. I wish they did. Thank you, Succeed, because I could at least use it as like the next thing I talk about. But in any case, as always, I will try to get you guys questions. At the same time, if you give those great little gifts like Succeed just did with the heart flying on my head, I will always do a shout out if and when I see it. Sometimes I miss it, but usually I see it and I try to do a shout out. All right, guys. Let's get rolling. So it's day 537, I believe, of Vladimir Putin's 3-day special military operation in Ukraine. There was a kind of a weird, not a weird, an angry brouhaha today, a controversy that blew up between Ukraine and NATO. NATO, thank you, Arifa. NATO has a secretary general. NATO's kind of weird because I've never really understood what the secretary general does. He doesn't really run NATO, right? Because NATO is run by the various bodies, the various countries coming together. It's all done by comity. It's all done by unanimous agreement, okay? But there still is a secretary general who is the sort of figurehead face of NATO and speaks on behalf of NATO, but tries not to get too far ahead of NATO overall. Anyway, that's Jens Stoltenberg. We've seen him a lot. I believe he's a former Norwegian prime minister, if I'm correct, and very good, very strong on Ukraine, great guy. Well, his chief of staff today, Stoltenberg's chief of staff, was doing an interview. And let me just read this to you, okay? His chief of staff was doing an interview, speaking to a Norwegian media panel. And he was asked by a Norwegian newspaper whether Ukraine must cede land to achieve peace and get NATO membership. In other words, whether Ukraine could give up land and then take NATO membership, and that would be a way of sort of packaging the deal to make Russia happy, to make Ukraine happy. He suggested that the question had already been raised with the alliance, meaning he suggested that, yes, some in NATO are talking about this, right? Ukraine giving up land in exchange for joining NATO, giving up land to the Russians, of course, and said, I'm not saying it has to be like this, but that could be a possible solution. Well, the Ukrainians went ballistic. Thank you, Ellie. And, for understandable reasons. Let me read you first what one of Zelensky's top advisors, Mikhailo Podolyak, said. And then let's talk about this for a second, okay? Podolyak said, that means deliberately choosing the defeat of democracy, encouraging a global criminal, preserving the Russian regime, destroying international law, and passing the war on to other generations. Thank you, Dora, for the hat. Obviously, if Putin does not suffer a crushing defeat, the political regime in Russia does not change. Thank you, Grace and Frilitic and Ava. And war criminals are not punished. The war will definitely return with Russia's appetite for more. There are a couple issues here, okay? First of all, whether or not this is a good idea, thank you, Trilitic, you don't discuss it publicly and you don't discuss it now. It is by discussing it now, and not just did he give an answer saying that's a possibility, but he also said, oh, some people in NATO are talking about that. Like he actually divulged, thank you, Trilitic, private conversations going on among NATO countries and admitting that some NATO countries want Ukraine or potentially want Ukraine to give up land, right? Which, by the way, thank you, Jay Smith, the corollary to that is some NATO countries are arguing that Russia should get to keep chunks of Ukraine, right? That's a pretty radical proposition. It's not something you talk about publicly. That's the first thing. I mean, we'll get into the substance of it in a second. But even putting aside the substance of whether it's a good or bad idea, you don't talk about that publicly. You just telegraphed to Putin that there's some division. There are people in NATO who really want Ukraine to just give up and give its land to Russia, right? That's good intelligence for Russia to have going forward. So that's stupid. Getting into the substance of it. So my point here is I don't blame the Ukrainians for going ballistic. You just don't talk about that now. That's not what we talk about at this point, right? Thank you, Trilitic. The substance of it, let me say this, okay? I'm going to look at the substance of it as an American foreign policy expert who is not a Ukrainian, okay? So I am not recommending this to Ukraine or anything else, okay? But I have actually mentioned this before, but not as a proposal. But I could see a situation where people mentioned that. Now, the problem for Ukraine is this, okay? Ukraine would get something amazing by joining NATO, because once Ukraine joins NATO, all bets are off. I mean, Russia can't touch them, right? Thank you, Tugas. Russia can't touch them. The problem is giving up land is just too high of a hurdle. You know what I mean? Because to an outsider, you go, okay, you give up some land, but you get to join NATO, and then you don't have to worry about wars in the future. But what land? Imagine our country, America, right? Which state are we going to give up? You know what I mean? Which state would we give up? Florida? Would we give up Texas? Would we give up New York? I mean, do you know what I mean? Like politically, you couldn't even propose such a thing as a leader. I know you're all going to give me states you want to give up. That was a rhetorical question. That wasn't an actual question. No, but seriously though, so it's as an outsider, intellectually, you go, yeah, that would suck them losing the land. But here's the other problem though. NATO could just let Ukraine join. Ukraine doesn't have to give up land. Why does Ukraine have to think about this actually? Here's my sort of radical suggestion. Thank you, user 2119. Why does Ukraine have to give up any land? Just let Ukraine join NATO. Right? Just let them join NATO. I mean, if Ukraine, now here's the thing. This would work best if Ukraine were able to kick Russia out of all of its territory. Because the problem is you do get into an interesting situation if Ukraine has not been able to kick Russia out. Okay, so let me get my handy dandy map 1 second here. The problem for NATO is, generally speaking, understandably, NATO doesn't want to let countries in who are currently at war or who are having ongoing skirmishes over their borders. I mean, this isn't over Ukraine's borders. What I mean is cross-border skirmishes, things like this, right? Battles on the borders, because then all of NATO is going to automatically have to go to war. So clearly they want to let members in who are generally peaceful and peaceable, but also who tend not to be in disputes with their neighbors that lead to war. Okay. So Ukraine. If Ukraine gets back, this is what Russia currently controls. If Ukraine gets all of it back, then Ukraine at least will not need to go to war with Russia itself, right? Because Ukraine has all of its territory back. Russia will want to invade Ukraine again, but who cares, right? If NATO, let's pretend in the next year or so, Ukraine's able to get all of their territory back. NATO lets Ukraine in. Ukraine now has no dispute with Russia. Ukraine will not be invading Russia, so Ukraine will not be going to war with Russia. And the Russians are going to invade Ukraine as a member of NATO as likely as they're going to invade Finland, Sweden, the British Isles, or America. They're not going to touch Ukraine if Ukraine's a member of NATO, most likely, right? So I guess my point is, I don't quite understand why Ukraine even needs to trade land. Here's what I think is happening. What I think you're hearing from this guy at NATO, you're hearing him say that because here's the second scenario, okay? The second scenario is more problematic. Ukraine, let's say the war sticks where it is right now. Thank you, Addie. Let's say the war doesn't advance at all from where it is right now, okay? So you've got Russia controlling all of this and all of this. Let's say that doesn't change. The war ends, but it ends, sort of like the Korean conflict in a way where it's kind of frozen, but it's not over, right? And Russia still controls this. Ukraine will still want to get this back. So even if Ukraine were to join NATO, there's a concern that Ukraine is going to be attacking these territories when they can in a guerrilla war, certainly, right? Makes sense. I think what the NATO guy was saying was the proposal is if you don't get all your land back and you still lay claim to that land, NATO is afraid that you're going to start another war to get that land back. If you relinquish claims to that land, then there won't be any further chance of you going to war because you've given up that territory. That's at least what is going on with what the NATO guy is thinking. Now, again, I'm not necessarily convinced it's a great idea. And I do think, by the way, the other problem you get is absolutely what Zelensky's advisor says. If you give the Russians anything out of this war, if they get a benefit out of doing it, you have now, what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? I know that the map needs a nip tuck. I'm going to work on it. When I remember, I'm going to tighten it up later. What's the word I'm looking for? You've given them an incentive to do it again. And you've given other countries an incentive. They basically look and they say, Russia has committed genocide. Russia has committed war crimes. Russia has invaded its neighbors and stole the territory, right? Well, if we don't punish Russia as a result, they're going to do it again, and other countries are going to do it again. It sets a precedent. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, it sets the precedent. And it provides a motivation and an incentive as well. It's really dangerous. And by the way, none of this discusses what do we do about Russia afterwards. These guys are Putin's a war criminal. We're gonna like have summits with Putin and have him show up at all our meetings after the war is over and say, oh, bygones, give you a little land and bygones, everything's good. And by the way, thank you, NJ, Patman. That's one way that I think the Ukrainians, but also more important than Ukrainians, supporters of Ukraine around the world can really make a difference. It's going to be very difficult for Russia. Thank you, Dora. It's not Russia. It's going to be very difficult for our countries if we keep talking about the fact that this guy's a war criminal. You can't have a summit with him, right? You can't treat them as normal. Their top officials are all criminals. This is a criminal country. They owe Ukraine hundreds of billions of dollars in reparations. Thank you, Courtney. Right? You can't have normal trade deals with them. You can't free up the money that's been frozen. So that, I think, if I were Ukraine, I'd be sort of looking at that too. I would really be revving up, thank you, Aiden, the support worldwide for people to keep noting just how bad Russia is, so that if NATO ever, let's say NATO just caves in a year and says, that's it, we want Ukraine to cut a deal. You make it politically impossible for NATO to do that, because they have admitted how bad Russia was, and they've admitted the crimes Putin did and how Putin can't get off the hook for it. Anyway, just my thought. So other news today, kind of weird. Thank you, Arifa, for that. Russia bombed a Swedish ball bearing factory in Lutsk, Ukraine. I'm looking. Okay, mock my t-shirt map as much as you will, but this is like the magic map. Every single town I talk about is on the freaking map. It makes me laugh when I find stuff. What do you know? There's Lutsk, Ukraine. It's on the freaking map. This is why I think after doing this for a year and a half, I kind of love the t-shirt map. It's kind of my shtick, but I do love how this map has so many of these cities we talk about. This is a city I hadn't heard of yet. Anyway, Lutsk, Ukraine. There's a Swedish ball bearing factory, and the Russians, I was going to say the Germans, the Russians bombed it today. They killed 3 of the employees. Vlad tells me my friend Vlad knows somebody who works there. He told me privately, but I can tell you publicly from what he told me, is that this is not a military factory. There's nothing tied to the military with this factory. The Russians just bombed it. Now, if you ask me, this was Putin flexing his muscles. It wasn't just flexing his muscles. Thank you, Addie. I'm trying to find a polite way to say this. It was, how do I want to say this? It was what Putin did to Angela Merkel back when he first met the German chancellor. I told you guys this story the other night, how she was deathly afraid of dogs. So when Putin first met her, when she came to Moscow to meet him, he brought his huge, oversized black dog in to meet her. And she's sitting there on the chair, and her legs are crossed like this. Her hands are like this, and you can literally see like her hand like this, right? Holding and literally, I mean, her body is like one big pretzel. This is what he's doing to Sweden. He wanted to just slap Sweden around. He wanted to hopefully kill some Swedes. I don't think he did. I think he may have killed some Ukrainians at the factory, but he wanted to slap them around because Sweden is joining NATO. They haven't joined yet because the Turks are being really bad NATO members and bad Europeans, but nonetheless, this was Putin trying to basically slap Sweden for joining NATO. That's all it was, I think. That's all it was. It didn't have to be, again, it had to be nothing to deal with the military. He doesn't care that it's nothing to do with the military. And by the way, he wanted to do, this is sort of the beauty of what Putin does, the beauty in a bad way. Not always, but Putin's very good, as the Russians are, at finding a way to do something. Remember, we've talked about this. Any of you guys who have been here for a while, we talked about this in terms of weapons of mass destruction. And I talked with you about how, I was worried that Putin would find a way of doing it that was a little bit questionable, and we weren't sure. And we'd say, well, we think there were biological weapons, but we're not sure who released them. Case in point, the dam blowing up. Okay. We still don't have, from what I know, proof the Russians blew up the dam, but we all know the Russians blew up the dam, right? That's a classic Putin move where it's done sort of so subtly that you're just not sure, even if you know. That's what he's doing with this right now. He wanted to bomb Sweden. We promised that if he touches Sweden, right, the Brits and the Americans gave Sweden a promise that basically if Putin went after them, we would come and defend them. Well, he blew up their factory in Ukraine. Is that really bombing Sweden, right? Is it? Is it? Or is it bombing Ukraine and it's a legitimate target? Or, right? I mean, he is very good at getting into these gray areas. So it makes it, and again, think of Joe Biden. I think of my own president, right? Going, well, he bombed the Swedes, but he didn't quite bomb Sweden. So like, does our promise really apply? That's what Putin's going for. So this is a way of basically being a jerk, slapping Sweden around, saying, I'm the biggest dog in the house. And I'm going to punish you for joining NATO, but I'm going to do it in a way that's just sly enough that NATO isn't going to come after me in some other way. It could be like attacking an embassy, but it would be attacking an embassy in a way by doing it accident. Honestly, I mean, when we bombed Serbia, totally legitimately, by the way, back in 1999, one of the places we hit by accident was the Chinese embassy. Now, at the time, I still don't know how that happened. It was always kind of interesting as to whether that was on purpose or not. But if you don't admit it was on purpose, you can kind of get away with it. Thank you, Cheryl. But I don't know. I mean, I have no information to say. Maybe it was an accident, but who knows? A few more stories. Swedish government has proposed a new military aid package for Ukraine worth 3.4 billion Swedish krona. That's around $300 million. Ukraine has warned that Russia is preparing to stage a provocation, basically a false flag, at its Kursk nuclear power plant involving the evacuation of some of the local population. I looked at my handy-dandy map, and Kursk, more or less, I'm going to say the town of Kursk is more or less up here, okay? Here's Kharkiv, Belgorod, and then Kursk up here. So somewhere up here is the plant. And didn't give any more details, but it sounded like the Ukrainians are worried that once again, Russia's trying to do one of these things where they're going to do something with the nuclear plant, perhaps not cause real damage, but pretend there's damage, release some radiation in the air and say, oh, Ukrainian drone did this. Again, just to make it look like to the West, what are those crazy Ukrainians doing? They've been attacked because Russia knows that the Biden administration, not so happy that that Zelensky's been going after Moscow. At least from what the press reports. The press reports say Biden's not really happy about it. So if you're Putin, you go, let's stage a drone attack that looks like it came from Ukraine, but really cross the line and go after a nuclear plant, right? Because then to try to freak Biden out. So that's what I think Putin is up to. Unrelated, or is it? The 330, what is it? I don't even know. KV? Kilovolt? It can't be kilovolts. It's got to be more than, maybe it is kilovolts. I don't know. Power line that supplies the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was shut down due to damage that occurred on the territory of Belarus. That I thought was kind of weird. Damage in Belarus that damages the power to the Chernobyl plant. It is kilovolt. Okay. That just seems a little bit too intentional. And again, especially when Ukraine is warning about more of these ongoing concerns about Russia perhaps going after nuclear plants, right? Just seemed a little odd to me. Let me do a quick pitch for my work, and then we'll do a couple more stories on the Russian economy, among other things. One of the ways I ask you guys to sort of support me if you can, and by the way, very much appreciate the gifts on TikTok and the gifts on YouTube, thank you, is memberships. Memberships are pretty easy. On TikTok, you can do them just with TikTok itself. You can become a member of my broadcast. It benefits me, but also you pay a monthly fee, basically. It benefits me, but with it, you can also join our Saturday show. Thank you, Dawn, by the way. Very generous gift. That's another way you can support me with the generous gifts. But by becoming a member on TikTok, you can join us for our Saturday show. I do a show most Saturday mornings. Thank you, Olson. It's 11 a.m. Eastern time, U.S. Saturday mornings. I do a show. Thank you, Allie. Very cute. And it's just for the paid subscribers as a thank you. So, and usually Vlad from Ukraine beams in, and it's kind of fun. So A, TikTok, you guys can do that. B, on TikTok, you can also become a member. Actually, any of you anywhere can become a member or subscriber of my work via Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a website you guys have at the bottom of the screen. TikTok, you guys can find the link in my bio, my profile on TikTok. Click the Linktree link, and the first thing that comes up is Ko-fi. Ko-fi is a site where, like Patreon, where you can just sign up monthly. But there are some benefits as well. You can join the Saturday show I talked about. You can also have access to our VIP auctions I'll talk about later. Finally, for you guys, Twitch folks, same thing. You can sign up, and you can even use your Amazon Prime membership to sign up for free to support my work and become a VIP member. YouTube folks, you guys can always use, any of you can use Ko-fi. Thank you, Pam Pam. But YouTube folks as well, you can become YouTube members. YouTube allows you to become a monthly member supporting my work. Like Susan, Luna, I'm looking at some of the names, Annie, and basically you'll see folks who have the green name when they put a comment up. It's green because they're a monthly supporter. Those folks, you guys can, thank you, Pam Pam, you can do that by hitting the $ at the bottom of your screen by the comment box, and you'll see super chat, super question, or super sticker, or whatever, and then membership. Click membership, and it'll give you the membership options. Don't have to, but I always say, if you can afford to do it, it really helps support my work. And if I can build up enough supporters, I don't have to keep bothering you guys about gifts. So thank you for helping out if you can. I appreciate it. Because I am doing this for free full time. That's the reason I ask you guys for help. Thank you. Russia Central Bank. So Russia Central Bank hiked its key interest rate by 3.5 percentage points, which is a hell of a hike, to 12% today, in an attempt to, thank you, Dawn, again for the whale. Thank you. We'll give the wave for the whale. An attempt to halt the sharp decline of the ruble. The ruble, interestingly, so the war breaks out last year. The ruble plummets. Then the Russian government intervenes, pumps a ton of money in, and the ruble goes up to even higher than it was before. Shortly thereafter, like a good 6 to 9 months ago, maybe, the ruble started dropping, and it's been dropping ever since. This year, it has lost a third of its value since the beginning of the year. Thank you, Jean-Francois. It's lost a third of its value from the beginning of the year. It's hitting its lowest level in almost 17 months. And the ruble dollar exchange rate is like 101. It got up to like 107, 108. Anyway, a lot of reasons it's a problem for the Russians. And in addition to, it makes imports incredibly expensive, because your ruble isn't worth as much. So they are raising interest rates in order to make the ruble more valuable, right? Because basically you get more money, you get more interest. So they're trying to do that, and they're trying to rein in inflation because the Russian government is spending so much money on the war. And next year, or this coming year, the Russian government proposed spending 1/3 of their budget on the war in Ukraine, which is insane. We checked into this the other day. Our budget is maybe 10%, 12%. No, or did we say it was 18? I forget. What was the total amount that we came to? Was it 18% of the American budget? I think was for the military. But Russia's talking about 33%, which is huge. Well, the problem is it's causing 18. That's what I thought it was. Thanks, guys. The problem was you spend that much money and you're talking about inflation. It helps spur inflation in the system. So they're raising the rates for that reason too, to hopefully clamp down inflation. But it starts to become a bit of a mess across the board. This was is this my last? Oh no, I have 2 more stories. Russia reportedly fined social media site Reddit. They went after Reddit and signed. This is my favorite, though. This shows you an example of how bad the ruble's doing. They fined Reddit 2 million rubles, or $20,000, which is 20,000 euros. 2 million rubles, $20,000. It's like, okay, that's not so bad. Accusing it of housing fake information and banned content about the war in Ukraine. So they're attacking Reddit for the same reason they went after Google, I believe. They certainly went after YouTube. They went after Wikipedia, because anybody who talks about or writes anything about the war and tells the truth, Russia says, and this is great, it runs counter Russia's anti-blah blah law, that disinformation law, that basically the Russian law says, get this, the Russian law says you aren't allowed to criticize the military, period. So you cannot criticize them at all. So simply coming out and saying any of this is enough for them to basically ban you or whatever. So they've been threatening. Now they're threatening a Reddit. I haven't seen if any of these sites have actually. I hope to God they haven't paid. But 20,000 is also so ridiculous. $20,000. Now Reddit, I'm sure, is not paying. There's no way in hell Reddit better not pay. But very interesting. Like, it also shows you just how sort of immature they are too. Finally, this is interesting too. So CNN had a really interesting story. I thought this was really interesting. Hey Beth, yes, it's very quiet over there. CNN had an interesting story last night. I don't know if Callum's with us. He'd appreciate this. I was going to send this Callum. I don't know if Callum's there. Callum often joins us on TikTok, but CNN had a really interesting story last night. Thank you, Martin. Oh, there you are. Listen to this. I don't know if you saw this on and sort of an innovative way Ukraine is using to find the landmines. Listen to this from CNN. CNN has seen Ukrainian frontline troops deploy a thermal camera on a commercially available drone at dusk, at sunset. The camera floats above Russian minefields and detects dozens of heat signatures. Some are craters, but many are landmines barely hidden under the surface. The heat they gather from the glaring summer sun during the daytime is retained as the sun sets, causing them to show up more clearly on thermal cameras. Drones with thermal cameras are frequently available to Ukraine's frontline troops and are relatively cheap at around $5,000 each. I thought that was very interesting. I know, is that something you knew about? I'm just asking. Callum's going to go, I knew about that. But I just thought that was kind of cool and interesting and smart. Exactly. Also, winter, I wonder, wouldn't winter be even, I wonder if winter would be more or less likely to be able to see them. You know what I mean? Because you'd think the metal under, it would be cold, but the metal under the ground would still, get some of the heat. Anyway, either way, but I thought that was kind of interesting. All right. Winter would be less, you think? 336? Okay. If there was snow, yeah, just curious. Anyway, okay, that's it for the news. You know what? I'll do one last pitch to show you guys our auctions we've got rolling, because the auctions are done tomorrow. Our auctions end every Wednesday. And what I do is I run auctions of cool Ukrainian stuff that I find in Ukraine, buy in Ukraine, people make, all sorts of different stuff. And we auction it off. 50% of the proceeds I channel back to Ukraine. Lately, we've been using it to buy camouflage nets for the Ukrainian military. This week's auction money, I'm going to guess we're probably going to use to do a new fundraiser that I'm going to launch probably tomorrow for the Ukrainian government. And thank you, Carol. Ukrainian troops are some Ukrainian troops that Vlad knows have come to us and asked for help repairing their ambulances that they're using to help their troops. And they did a really nice video. They even sent me video of them working on one of the soldiers. But I told Vlad, I said, I'm going to probably show you guys on Discord the video. For TikTok and YouTube, I'm not sure if they'd get upset, like seeing a soldier in the field, like in pain, getting helped. But basically, they need help getting new tires for the 3 ambulances and spare parts for the ambulances. So they've asked for $1,700. I'm going to set up the fundraiser tomorrow separately, but also I suspect our auction revenues will probably go there as well. I'm going to talk to Vlad about it. These are the fun. We do these kind of fundraisers occasionally where we just 100% of the money goes to Ukraine. So we raise the money, but I don't take any and Vlad doesn't take any. In any case, what else we do, as I said, so we have these auctions over at Discord. We've got public auctions and VIP auctions. The VIP auctions are for our paid subscribers, our monthly subscribers. Dawn, I don't have Vlad's stuff up, but if you can get it, if you have access, if you have Vlad's information, feel free to send it now and put a note that says for the ambulances. If you've got Vlad's information, I don't have it handy to give out to you is the only problem. Because normally I'll put it as a link at the top of my link tree, but I don't have it handy right now. And it would take me a second. If you've got Vlad's PayPal, send it directly. Yeah. Just put a comment in there that says it's for the ambulances. Yep, for the tires for the ambulances. Because he sent me all the information today. It's just a video and stuff, and I don't have time to do it. So in any case, yes. So we do these auctions, and bottom line is it helps me out. 50% goes to support my work because I do this full time, and 50% we always send back to Ukraine, which is nice. But a couple different things just to show you guys. Like we said, we've got cool challenge coin for tomorrow. This is a commemorative coins that they make. All the military guys do these. This is the Ghost of Kiev, the commemorative coin, which is kind of cool. This was the Ukrainian fighter pilot that shot down so many of the Russians at the beginning of the war. Thank you, Tugas. I've got this, which is a very cool Ukrainian keychain from Ukraine, mind you. It's the Ukrainian trident, but it's nice because it's actually made by a small business in Ukraine, which is nice. Because again, I think it's I don't want to get stuff that's American made. It's from Ukraine, which is kind of cute. Cute little Ukrainian Christmas ornament made by the Ukrainian post office, showing, and it's a fridge magnet as well, showing 2 Ukrainians wearing traditional garb as angels in the snowstorm flying under the Christmas sun. You can see. but it's nice because it's an ornament with a string, but also a fridge magnet. And then finally, I've shown you guys before. I think this is the nicest piece we've got. Is this beautiful necklace made by Larissa, who is with us tonight on TikTok, I think, because I saw her earlier, who's under the name, there she is, Wild Hunt Corsetry. And Larissa made this. Larissa is a Ukrainian American. She's an artist, and she typically does jewelry and things in the traditional Ukrainian fashion. Well, this is really interesting because she took one of, correct me if I'm wrong, Larissa, she took one of the Easter eggs that her mother had made. The Ukrainians have this, they call it pisanka. And I'm holding it so it doesn't fall. Trust me, Paulies. The Ukrainians have this style with batik, basically, where they paint wax onto eggs, and then they dip the egg in color, and you remove the wax and dip the egg, and you paint the egg, and they make these beautiful designs. Well, her mother does this, and she's shown me the photos. Her mother does like these huge, was it an ostrich? This incredibly ridiculous egg. I mean, the thing was huge, beautifully done. Well, this is from one of the eggs her mother has done. So it's neat because it's actually a Ukrainian Easter egg, so to speak. Ostrich, yeah. This one's, I'm assuming this is chicken. Is this chicken or is this ostrich? This almost looks bigger. I forget. Is this one chicken? But in any case, this is up for auction. So this is, you'll find over at discord.aravosis.com. Chicken. Okay, this is chicken egg over at discord.aravosis.com. And if we get done with the show in time, I think we will get done in time. We'll go over and hang out at the Discord a little bit afterwards. I have an after show I do there on days that we finish early enough, and we'll go and just hang out for a few minutes. I talk, you guys listen, you chat amongst yourself, you chat in the comments, but it's nice. It's just, I think it's called John's After Party on my Discord. So it's discord.aravosis.com. So go check that out. Okay, guys. What do we got? Let's talk questions. Soren, thank you for the super sticker, Soren. Appreciate that. Questions. What do you got? Guys, my mom's house was so freaking hot. I turned the temperature down 1 degree, and now I'm freezing. It's like, thank you, pediatric nurse. It's like, I feel bad though, because I'm probably freezing her now. It's like, it's one or the other. Do you see that Lindner passed 5 billion euros a year? I don't know what that is. What is that, Ali? Tell me. Oh, that's the Germans had promised. Is that what you mean? German, Jens, I don't know if there's a www before that. There might be, there might not be. Try it and just to be safe that's the URL. It may not be a www. I think that's the German government. The German government made a commitment for funding Ukraine for the next several years. Thank you, Marcy. If that's what you're saying, yes. I didn't know what you meant by Lindner, but I did hear about the Germans making this commitment, which was really nice. So that's good. Oh, by the way, one of the reasons why these multi-year commitments are important is because it sends the message to Russia that you're not going away. Thank you, LWD, for the gift there on TikTok. Because the concern is that Putin thinks if he holds out long enough, NATO will get tired. By NATO actually, and we saw Denmark do this as well. I don't know who else did, but Denmark, I remember, basically putting out a multi-year budget saying we will fund them this amount for the next 5 years, the next 3 years. It makes it clear that at least for the next 3 to 5 years, they're not going anywhere. Thank you, Hazel. That's important. So and from Germany especially, that's really nice. I mean, Germany's one of the key allies, but also, that's just good. That's good from Germany. So yay. Very glad to hear that. What else we got, guys? More questions. If China had the chance, Nicholas says, would they take Russia's Far East, like if Russia was severely weakened and beaten? I don't know. I mean, the problem with that, Nicholas, is Russia still has nukes. And this is the reason Russia gets away with murder anyway, right? The reason they're getting away with what they're doing in Ukraine, I think in a way they are getting away with it. Certainly, the U.S. hasn't been going after Ukraine, the Russians like we should. We've been really careful about giving Ukraine, the weapons. We keep holding back and all this kind of stuff. Well, the reason that's happening is that hang on a second. Sorry, going boom. Sorry, quick second. I'm blocking a troll just for fun. And by the way, guys, I'm assuming you guys know this, but hang on here. Anybody talking about Hawaii is a troll. You guys know that. That's Russian disinformation. So for TikTok folks, I'm assuming you know that. Yeah. Take them. Anybody who asks about Hawaii, take them out. Because it's a Russian campaign that they're doing. Thank you, I'm Fuller. So yeah, I think the problem is Russia's got nukes. So China would probably love to grab some of the minerals in the East, but Russia's got nukes. And do they use the nukes? You know? So that would be the limiting factor there, I think. Um, what happened if Putin dies? Well, either good stuff or bad stuff. I mean, it's hard to say. You know, one of the problems is we don't know who would be coming next, right? So if somebody not more moderate, well, maybe we would get somebody more moderate, but if somebody who says this war is a mess, it's a disaster, it's his fault, and we need to get back to normal relations and end the war, that's good. If it's somebody who says this war is a disaster because he didn't fight hard enough and we need a nationwide mobilization and we need to destroy Ukraine and we need to, put nuclear weapons on the borders. I mean, who knows, right? Then it's a bad thing. So it kind of depends, it very much depends who replaces Putin. There's also the issue of if the Russians lose the war, potentially it makes Russia less stable, because it makes Russia weaker anyway, because they're already weaker now, right? Because their military is getting destroyed, and they're spending so much money. But it could make Russia more likely to fall apart. Now, again, you get is that good or is it bad, right? If you're one of the border countries or any of us, there's a good side to Russia falling apart because it'll be weaker. Right? When the Soviet Union fell apart, Russia was much weaker. That's good. But when the Soviet Union fell apart, there was a lot of concern about nuclear weapons too. So that's the bad side. Meaning, if Russia fell apart, would some of these breakaway regions have nukes? What would they do? Would Russia try to get them back? I mean, you could really, it was, the one thing that George Bush, the father, did very well was manage the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And probably doesn't get enough credit for, doesn't get enough credit in the common parlance. I mean, the foreign policy experts know, but anyway, always an issue to be worried about. Without I don't know, Jens says, could Medvedev succeed him? I mean, thank you, Louis, for the hat. People have brought that up. I mean, Medvedev is a name that's popped up. I don't know enough of the inner machinations to say, who the I don't think. I was reading about this recently. Nobody really has a sense of who would come next. I remember, what did I read? Remember there was something, I think I read it to you guys, where they were talking about the different scenarios and they were saying like, it could be just like a technocrat who's somebody who just kind of, a placeholder just to keep things going. Nothing changes. It could be somebody more of a moderate to change things, although not clear who that would be. It could be somebody way more crazy who, like I said, says we should have bombed, we should have used nukes from the beginning, and then you get like a lunatic taking over. So, or Medvedev has clearly lost his mind. I mean, thank you, Maverick. Appreciate that wave. Medvedev has lost his mind. He was the former prime minister, former president, who was a moderate back 20 years ago, and now is just a raving lunatic. And they believe he's an alcoholic, but that he's a out of control alcoholic, and it's causing all of his outbursts and everything else because they're crazy. He went off today. He wrote this just crazy thing today. He likes to use ethnic slurs, by the way, too. So he refers to the Poles using an ethnic slur in English for Poles. And he uses words like this, which are just, incredibly immature. It's just incredibly immature. Like, why would, and he's still a senior person in the Russian government. Again, there's something wrong with these people. There's something seriously wrong with these guys. Like, who does that? Can you imagine a senior leader of a country using ethnic slurs about their neighbors? Like, who does that? Well, I can think of one leader who did that, but S-hole countries. But nonetheless, it's not we don't admire people who do that. Let's put it that way. Helen says she cannot believe this war is still going on. Honestly, it's only been a year and a half. I totally believe the war is still going on. It's been a year and a half. Thank you, Feisty. World War II went for 5 years. Easy. 6 years, excuse me. Easy. We were in Iraq for 20 years. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years. We didn't win. Russia was in Afghanistan 10 years. Didn't win. You don't typically go into these things and win. Not this kind of a war. You don't go in and just kind of win it in a year. The other problem is we didn't give Ukraine the weapons it needed from the beginning. Vietnam, same thing. I don't know how many years, 10 plus years. Vietnam didn't win that one either. But we didn't try to win this one. No, I fault Biden a lot for this. He didn't want to win this one. So the war, of course, the war is going on for a long time. Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was thinking 63. You go all the way back to 55 for Vietnam. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm thinking like 63 or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Even longer for Vietnam then. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the war goes on for several years. It's a war, you know? I mean, yeah. What else, guys? What else? Beep, 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 beep. I don't really have a problem going there for money and oil, to be honest. We went to Kuwait for oil, and it was very important to go to Kuwait for oil because Saddam Hussein took Kuwait and threatened the oil, the heart, the sort of the lifeline of oil to the whole world. So there's nothing wrong with going in because of oil. It depends why you're going in because of oil. You know what I mean? If you're just going in because you want to get some oil fields, that's not good. But people were saying like the first Iraq war, people were saying it was blood for oil. And it was a stupid comment because of course we're going in because of oil. Are you kidding me? Like, I mean, who controls the oil matters. Of course it matters. Just like frankly with Taiwan. Part of the problem with Taiwan is semiconductor chips, and who controls the world supply of semiconductor chips? Kind of important, whether it's Taiwan, a friend, or Russia or China, I should say, a putative and putative enemy, meaning arguably an enemy. Ali says, definitely a bit out there, but what if Lukashenko, who's the dictator in Belarus, goes for it? Wasn't he trying for it in the USSR times? I'm not sure what it means. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm going to look for more questions, but feel free to throw in more, Ali. What were you talking about? Brandon, do you think Biden would continue to send military aid to Ukraine if it attempts to retake Crimea? Yes, because he wouldn't have a choice. Biden has never said they can't take Crimea. The Biden administration has even said that attacking Crimea is okay because Crimea is Ukraine, right? So the Biden administration has made that clear that when we say we don't want Ukraine, or we would prefer that Ukraine didn't attack Russian territory, we make clear that we don't include Ukraine or Crimea because Crimea is Ukrainian. Having said that, I can guarantee, this is just my guess, okay, but my guess of knowing my own government, I can guarantee you Joe Biden does not want Ukraine to take Crimea. I guarantee you he doesn't. And that is a big part of the reason they're not getting the weapons. He says, right, oh, we're afraid of Ukraine attacking Russia. No, we're not. We're afraid of Ukraine attacking Ukraine. We're afraid of Ukraine actually succeeding in getting Crimea back. I mean, think about it. Everyone's worried about the counteroffensive and how it's going. If Biden were worried about the counteroffensive and how it's going, he'd be giving Ukraine the missiles they've been wanting forever, the ATACMS. He's not. He'd be giving them, well, he wouldn't be dragging his feet and making up excuses on the F-16s, right? I mean, they're going to train 6 pilots next year. 6. Ooh, exciting. 6 pilots. How exciting. Actually, I think is it 4 or 6? It's some ridiculous number. No, he's dragging his feet because he I've told this before, doesn't want Ukraine to win. He does. But why is Biden doing this? I think there's a number of things. He's being advised by people who think this way. His national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, and his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who's the top general. I think both of them are worried about Putin, and they think, oh my God, Russia, who knows what could. I saw some comments at the beginning of the war from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, talking about something about how dangerous the situation with Russia is, and you never know. He was talking about wars and how wars can like spin out of control and this kind of thing. They've convinced Biden that, oh boy, you need to do everything to stop going to war with Putin. He's really dangerous, right? At the same time, I think Biden is a transactional guy. That's probably the best way I would put it. I think Biden would negotiate away his mother in order to reach a deal. It's a fear I've got about him, but I think he likes to negotiate and settle things. And he doesn't really care what he gives away entirely, I think, in terms of to settle it. I'm not sure. It worries me. I mean, like Trump claimed he was the big negotiator. Trump doesn't negotiate. Trump doesn't do deals either. Biden, I think, actually does deals. The problem is Biden's kind of willing to give away anything so that if you're a liberal Democrat, you get worried because he'll give away everything, right? Or I mean, as far as that goes, but if you're a Ukrainian, you should be worried too, because I'm not sure that I think Biden would be, thank you, Bonnie. Biden wants a deal. And his people have told him, by the way, the other reason is too, his people have also told him that you got to be wary of, because you got to be careful of Putin, but also Taiwan, we've got to be focused on Taiwan. We can't be worrying about Ukraine. I mean, we can be worried, but we can't be giving all these weapons to Ukraine. Like at some point, this war has to be over. We got to worry about Taiwan. Thank you, Peachums, Peach Umbrella. So I don't, he's not a stupid man. He's a the man's a foreign policy expert. He knows foreign policy. He was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee in the U.S. Senate for decades, I think, or chairman of the number two. He knows foreign policy, but I think he likes to cut deals, and he looks at Ukraine. He wants to cut a deal and move on. And he's not a cold warrior in a way. Clearly, he's not somebody. I mean, Ronald Reagan. I keep to bring this up, but right now we kind of need a Ronald Reagan and a Margaret Thatcher. I hate to say it. I mean, I think with Russia you do. I'm not, forget them for everything else. Okay. But I mean, in terms of somebody with some backbone that stands up to them and goes, boom, frankly, what the polls are doing, you need somebody more like Duda. And even though Duda is horrific when it comes to democracy, so let's not forget that. But in terms of the way Duda is approaching Ukraine, fabulous. The way the Brits have been approaching Ukraine, certainly Boris Johnson. I don't know this government well enough, but seems like, Rishi Sunak's doing well, but I mean, seems like it, but meaning the Brits have been, thank you, Timothy, the Brits seem to have been ahead of America in terms of being like, boom, boom, boom about Russia. I think you need somebody that stands up to Putin a bit more and says, and Biden, I don't know. Again, Biden's been doing great though. I mean, Biden's been doing great, but he, as I always say, he gets a B+. He doesn't get an A for how he's doing. So what do you do? Oh, RJ, it was so nice to see you here. You're leaving now. Bye-bye. Angel gets its wings. Angel gets its wings. RJ gets its wings. La, 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 la. Okay, what else, guys? Well, they don't have to, because, I mean, I agree. They're more forceful because it's their backyard. But honestly, somebody's saying that those countries could be more afraid because it's their backyard, right? You look at Europe. I mean, hey, the history of Europe dealing with the Soviet Union has not been, it's in our backyard. Let's be, you know what I mean? Let's be really tough with the European. Let's be tough with the Russians. Thank you, Tide Rabbit and Brian. Germany and France, Russia's still their backyard. That, I don't know. I don't want to get into this whole thing and piss off people here, but I think if you look at the history of sort of foreign policy vis-a-vis the Soviet Union and even Russia, a lot of the appeasement came about because Russia was in their backyard. And they felt, A, we've got to do business with them, and we can't do business with them. And B, just that we've got to live with them. So we don't, whereas for America, it's easy across the sea to, with Russia, but we've got to actually live with them, right? So being the back, so it's kind of interesting, I mean, that the Baltic states and Poland are so with Russia. Having said that, I think they always have been. Look at the Finns. I mean, the Finns just, I mean, like I said, back in what was the early 1940s, or did the Finnish war with Russia start in 39 or so? I always forget when it started, but there were 3 good years of the Finns just, beating the bejesus out of the Russians. I mean, kind of amazing. Thank you, Bonnie. Which neighbor? Oh, Alaska. Yeah. Well, that's true. Alaska's neighbor too. Very much so. Yeah. I was there. I wasn't actually close to Russia. Well, how close? I forget how close I got out. I got into the Aleutians. I don't remember how far out I went, though. I don't think I went very far out into the Aleutians. Actually, I probably was closer when I went to Nome than in the Aleutians. I'm trying to think. Sort of my closest point to getting to Russia, maybe. Well, I mean, I actually went to Russia, but the Russian Far East. But I mean, when I was in Alaska itself, a lot of time in Alaska. Love Alaska. Do you think this will become a prolonged war like we've seen with Afghanistan? It could. But I think, again, the problem is we don't want Ukraine to win. I mean, Biden doesn't want them to win. He wants them to tie. I think he wants them to get back maybe the land that they lost last year. He doesn't want them to get Crimea. And actually, the problem, I was thinking about this yesterday. The problem for Biden with this is Biden isn't looking at this war as a we win or we lose. He wants competition. I mean, he wants Russia and Ukraine to pretty much be tied, and that's it. Oh, I'm just not even going to guess. Hang on, guys. I'm just going to block somebody. Sorry. Somebody's coming on. And, when I see a long post in Russian, it's this long and it's in Russian. It's like, sorry, guys. You're leaving. Elvis is leaving the building. But I think the problem for Biden is going to be if Ukraine loses this, if the counteroffensive truly just dies and doesn't go anywhere, Biden's going to be blamed for it. And the irony is Biden is setting up Ukraine so that Ukraine doesn't win, so that Ukraine has to reach an agreement with Russia. And if Ukraine doesn't win, Biden is going to be blamed for Ukraine losing. That's the irony here. Even though I talk about it because I have to talk about it. Meaning, I think it's important to get the message out there because eventually, hopefully, because Vladimir Putin really doesn't want to lose Crimea, and Biden doesn't want to make Putin mad because if Putin gets mad, maybe he'll use his nuclear weapons and go crazy. I think all of that's a BS argument, but that's what Biden is thinking. Biden's afraid of Putin, basically. So, tie doesn't benefit anybody but Russia. I'm with you. But a tie makes the conflict go away, and Biden can focus on China instead. Let me see here. Beep, 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 beep. I was not digging Golden Gnome. No, we did see Richard Gere was kind of funny. We were at the Gnome Nugget. I think that's what it's called. I can't remember. I remember this. It was a bar, and we were at it back in maybe even 1989, 1990. And I'm at the Gnome Nugget bar, and it's cool because it's this bar that's on the ocean. So there's a big picture window looking on the ocean, but on it. And the waves were hitting the window. It was crazy. And the waitress comes up to us and goes, "Richard Gere is here." And across the bar with his his baseball hat on was Richard Gere. It was the funniest. It was wild. We didn't go and bother him, but I was kind of like, Richard Gere was at the same bar as me in Nome, Alaska. And I mean, it's kind of a dive. The Gnome Nugget's a bit of a dive. It was very funny. Yeah, now I would have gone and said, "Hi, what the hell?" Hazel's been there. I shouldn't say dive, but you know what I mean. If you've been there, you know what I mean. Gnome is a bit of a dive. I mean, let's face it. Gnome, it was permafrost. Who knows what it is now? Anyway. Okay, Ali maybe has a fully formed question here. Do you think China will invade Taiwan in the near future? Maybe. And if so, how do you see it playing out? I see war with China, quite literally. Between us and China, if they do that, seems like a crazy task like D-Day, but they know exactly where you're landing and when you're coming from. I mean, the Chinese need to be careful on this because you're not going to find a lot of peaceniks in the U.S. vis-a-vis China. The Republicans would like nothing better than to go to war with China. I mean, like literally, their party is there. So you got half the country happy to go to war. You've got half the country controlled by Fox News, and Fox News will be happy to go to war with China. So you're going to have that just whipping it up, right? The fever to start with. Democrats, I think you're going to find most Democrats say there's no way we can let China take over Taiwan. It's too dangerous. I mean, strategically, it's just too important in terms of the semiconductor chips alone. But also, yeah, so I think China invades Taiwan and you're going to see us at war with China, I think. And China better be aware of that, But no, I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen, but hopefully China figures that out before it happens, Do you think China's carrying Russia like daycare? In a way, certainly. Well, I mean, before the war, Russia and China were at least more equal. Now, China's the power, Russia's not. Putin is China's Lukashenko, right? So, or say Putin is Xi's Lukashenko. So in other words, Russia is China's Belarus. That poor little neighbor who you basically control, and you have summits with them to make the neighbor feel like I'm important, but that's about it. Putin is now this compared to China. compared to Xi. He's nothing. Yeah. Whereas before, they really, but a super duper junior partner. Exactly. China will be more aggressive prepared than Russia. I don't know. I mean, Xi is, again, I don't want to get into a whole China discussion, but at least from what we're seeing, Xi seems to be the kind of leader I wish Biden were, right? Xi is being more of a in-your-face kind of thing, right? As far as exerting Chinese control around the Pacific. Again, I don't claim to be a China expert, but from what I'm seeing, right? And that's the danger. But at the same time, that was my dad used to run the organization many years ago. Anyway, what else, guys? We'll maybe do another question or two, and then I think we'll go to Discord because pretty good. The timing's been pretty good tonight. So, what else? She. Oh, so should we say she for she? Okay. She, except then you say she, and everybody goes, who? Who's she? Well, exactly. I mean, sorry, but Halicon is talking about Putin saying blah, 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 and his nukes and everything else, and they've got their own. And this is exactly right. The Brits have their own nuclear weapons. And frankly, that should be your response. Whenever the Russians sit there and talk about their nukes and talk about going after NATO and talk about going after Poland, they're not gonna. Again, they can't really beat Ukraine. I mean, we have to see how this war goes, but they're not doing well. I mean, if they were doing well, this war would have been over in like a month, right? They're a year and a half into this war, and at best, they're having a stalemate. Russia is, they're not doing great. They can't afford to take on NATO. Thank you, Joyce. They can't afford to take on NATO, so it's just BS, especially in the nuclear thing. I mean, I just like, if you fire nukes at Great Britain's going to fire nukes at you, and you can kiss Moscow and St. Petersburg goodbye. So you're not going to fire nukes at Great Britain, and you're not going to fire them at Poland or anybody else who's a member of NATO. You're not, it's just Russians, how long is Ukraine able to keep up the fight? Well, I mean, as long as we keep supporting them, right? I mean, that's the question. But honestly, it's not just keep supporting them. We've got to give them the right weapons. I think we're still not giving them the right weapons. So, let's see, All right. My mother's going to come rolling in at us while we're live. Mom, you're insisting on being on camera while I'm live? Anyway. All right, guys. I'm going to do, I will do the quick summary of where we are, and then maybe go to Discord for a few minutes while we're waiting to eat. Okay. All right. Day 537 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. The NATO chief of staff got into some real trouble today. She cracks me up. I can take that out, Okay, well, Mom, still doing my show. Oh, Kate's stuck out there? Oh, jeez. Well, no, don't go out. All right. Yeah, use your controller, would you? Yeah, sorry. My sister-in-law's. Actually, I predicted this. My sister-in-law, she has to come in. I predicted at the beginning of the show I was going to have a sister-in-law interruption. I was right. So anyway, yeah, big brouhaha today with NATO Secretary General's chief of staff suggesting that Ukraine maybe should give up land in exchange for becoming a member of NATO, which didn't go over really well. Okay, I'm going to kill these guys. Okay, both of you, stop talking. Mom. Oh my God, I'm going to kill them. Neither of them is realizing. Okay, both of you, I'm live to a couple thousand people. Please stop talking. All right. The thing is, I feel like the kid in the basement where it's like, Ma, you want a sandwich? In any case, got into some hot water for saying they wanted, not wanted, but suggesting that Ukraine could give up land in exchange for joining NATO. Russia bombed a Swedish ball bearing factory in Ukraine today, which I think was retaliation for Ukraine, for Sweden joining NATO or trying to join NATO. Ukraine. Oh, the Swedish government proposed a new military aid package for Ukraine worth 3.4 billion Swedish kroner, worth $300 million. Ukraine warned that Russia is preparing to stage a provocation at its Kursk nuclear power plant. 300. Oh, and the power was cut off to Chernobyl, interestingly enough, cutting through Belarus, which makes me suspicious. Well, I might as well just walk out. Don't worry. Thank you, Red. Wilson. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Wilson. Yes. The Russian central bank hiked its key interest rates by 3.5 percentage points to 12% in order to try to keep inflation under control, but more importantly, buck up the ruble. The thought is that the Russian central bank will not do anything to significantly try to keep inflation under control until after the election next year, because they don't want to do anything that, ruffles Putin's chances, even though, let's face it, Putin's not going to lose the election. Russia has reportedly fined social media site Reddit 2 million rubles, or a whopping $20,000, accusing it of housing fake information concerning the war. And then finally concluded with kind of a neat story, talking about how Ukraine is using drones with thermal cameras to detect landmines. And they're basically, the landmines are out there under the ground, right? And the sun shines, it's summertime. The ground heats up, but the landmines are metal. They heat up even more. So at sunset, the ground cools off, but the landmines retain more heat. So Ukraine is using this thermal imaging camera with a drone, looking for the hot spots and then bombing them or whatever they're doing to blow them up. But kind of the downside is there are so many drones over so much land. It's going to take a while. That's why the counteroffensive is taking so long, but still very interesting though. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off and go over to Discord. I'm going to turn the temperature up 1 degree because it's freezing. And join me over there for a little bit. Otherwise, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you, Bonnie, for the last minute gift. Thank you guys for the gifts overall. Thank you, mods, for going after the trolls as always. And Wilson and the other gift givers on YouTube as well. Otherwise, yeah, go over to my Discord. It's discord.aravosis.com. Thank you, Richard, there. And what you do is you go to the upper left corner and you'll see John's after party. We hang out there. Make sure you turn the volume on. I talk, everybody else types because it's too confusing if everybody's talking. I don't make mom a cup of tea at this hour. Yeah, no, she's fine. It was she cracks me up though, because she does stuff and like, and of course, it's almost like a TV show with mom because she's 93 and she's got her walker, but she goes really slowly. So just getting this slow motion image of mom coming behind and scooting by just cracks me up. Anyway, too funny. All right, guys. Thank you all so much. But yeah, join us on Discord. I may only go for 15, 20 minutes, but we'll go and hang out a little bit. Okay. Because then hopefully they're getting some pasticcio, some Greek food warmed up. I hope. All right. See you guys. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Troll counting would be funny. I don't know how to do it though. That would be funny to do. Thank you, Ernie. But for the mods to kind of do it, like if there was some way to just go ding, 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 and it showed up on the screen, that would be fun. I don't know how we'd do it though, but it would be fun. All right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, join us at the Discord right now, discord.aravosis.com. If you're going there for the first time, make sure you click the README and click that you've agreed to the terms because that should open everything else up. All right, guys. See you over there.